You know that I buy faulty electronic devices, attempt to fix them and sell them for a profit. However, the thing is with eBay, not everything is as it seems.
Console is being sold as faulty as it switches on for around 1 or 2 seconds, then turns back off. Issue is not the power supply as it's been tested. It has been opened and inspected by an approved electronics repairer who stated that there is a power outage causing the console to short and switch off. I wish this video was that easy.
Wait, you said you know who had this console? As in this exact console? Because I've bought it from that person on eBay and they've not said anything. The total cost I actually paid for this PS5 console was £130. So we go ahead and type in PS5 disc, cost £130. And then later on in the video, if I'm lucky enough to actually fix this, we'll see how much profit estimated we'll be able to achieve. Let me get this open. I've purchased from a lot of places on eBay and I've bought a lot of items. And often what can happen is somebody in a listing could turn around and say that they've sent it off to this approved repair or they've had a shop look at it. Whereas what that actually means is that they've attempted to fix it themselves, but instead of just kind of openly admitting that, they'll put the blame on somebody else. I'm not necessarily saying that that's what's happened here, but it will be interesting to see if I can try and find that out. So here art thou, PS5. Now, condition, from what I can tell, you know what? It looks relatively good. We have some sort of warranty sticker down the bottom of the console just here, which is interesting because usually when there's a warranty sticker, and I think in the pictures they showed that there's also one here. Putting 2 warranty stickers on it, I can see why somebody would do it, but I don't think there's necessarily a need for it, you know? First impressions off the bat is that all of the screws look like they're in the correct places, which is really, really good. It is an older revision model. Something as simple as having the screws in the right places when I look onto this as somebody who's coming onto the repair with a fresh pair of eyes is really nice to see. It usually means that the state of the console on the inside isn't actually that bad, but I've been wrong many times before. Before I take this apart any further, let me just plug the power in and verify that the issue is that of a beep on, beep off. Right, that's plugged in. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Beep on, beep off. No beep off, actually, just like a blue light and then off with no beep. The fan also spins. Could be a plethora of different issues that we have at hand here. Too early to call anything just yet. Do we have an SSD? It's happened once before. No, we don't, unfortunately. Right, taking the first cover off. Any surprises? No, on the face of it. Looks okay so far. Oh, okay, all right. Somebody clearly knew what they were doing with this console. At least they had some sort of knowledge towards UART, which for me personally, I use UART to diagnose exactly what's going on with this PlayStation 5. It communicates with a chip on the PlayStation 5 called the South Bridge, which then presents a code as to what's going on with it. I type that code into a database and sometimes it will tell me the exact issue. What I'm saying is that somebody has already done this, the previous person. They've used this bit of copper here, which is usually a copper color, very much like this. But they've put solder on here and used that as a ground point and then hooked UART up to get those codes. Before I do that myself, I'm just going to take it apart a little bit further on to see if there's anything on the board that immediately jumps out at me. All right, what's under this hood as well? Okay, off the first thing, I see a lot of things wrong with this. You know, there's definitely a lot going on. Oh dear. Let me point them out. This screw is the most stripped screw I've ever seen in my life, to the point where I think they've actually etched a horizontal line in so they can actually get that out. That should just be replaced. I don't know why you would leave that in. It's meant to look like this, just like a Phillips indentation, but they've, for some reason, just put this back. I don't know why you would have put that back. There's also a lot of flux underneath one of the RAM ICs just up here. So my guess is that this console is beeping on and then turning off because of something to do with RAM. That's what I'm going to say straight off the bat, only because I see some flux just under here. There is also, I don't know what's going on here, some funky green stuff. I don't know. I'm going to have to look under the microscope to see exactly what's going on. That's not the end of it, by the way. There is, it looks like they've replaced a USB port here at the back because that solder is not factory fresh solder. That clearly looks like, to me, somebody has replaced that USB port. Same as the HDMI port, by the way. So wow, oh wow, do we have our work cut out for us on this PlayStation 5. Yeah, it's definitely not a factory port, is it? First things first, can I get this off? Like, how? Okay, I can. Wow. So the fact I can just unscrew that with a flat head, as easy as what I am, shows me that it wasn't done up tight enough to begin with. I'm actually very, very glad and happy that I'm able to get that out, and that is going straight in the bin. I think firstly, out of interest, I am just going to hook up to UART and see if it is indicating some sort of RAM problem. I am just going to add some fresh solder without even any flux. Just some leaded. That's ground, which is why it's not taking this solder. It's much bigger. There we go. So we put ground there, which is the black cable, and then the yellow and the blue. This is going to vary for yourself. This is just how I have my specific setup. This is the first code that I'm getting, which is just a general power failure, right? But I've got like 10 lines of this. So what I'm going to do is completely clear the codes and start again and see if it gives me something different. If not, I don't know where I'm going to start. Wow, yeah, okay. So I've just cleared the codes and this is the only one that's coming out for me. Unfortunately, which is really, really, really not good. It could mean that anything is wrong with this. It says, you know, peripheral GDDR6, so that's going to be the RAM APU data line short. So I need to get looking, basically. And what I'm hoping is that there's something a little bit obvious when I look at this board underneath the microscope to tell me what's going on. Worst case, I look at the APU and there's a chip or crack in it and it's game over. Best case, something jumps out at me. Wish me luck. Here art thou APU. I've literally just balled up all of the liquid metal and put it into the middle because, again, I'm just looking for the corners, sorry, to see if there's any cracks, but it doesn't look like it. The APU itself looks okay, which is really good. That's the first thing ticked off the box. Lovely jubbly. I mean, back over to this monstrosity, just so I can see exactly what's going on. What even is that? I don't know. I have no words. Can I just scrub it off? You know? Like, why have they done this? It looks like just cheap flux, I think. That's what it looks like. And the flux has therefore corroded the copper because it's coming off on here. Yeah, I think that was flux that's caused that mess. Wow. What kind of flux are they using that causes that? What on earth? A lot of people will say maybe like a plumber's flux, I think. Okay, that's now not a worry of mine then because it looks all right. I didn't know whether it was corroded, etc. Okay, this is the USB port that they've replaced as well. And this person hasn't necessarily done a great job of cleaning up. I try not to comment too much on other people's work, but I guess for the sake of this and trying to repair this PS5, I need to make some sense out of things, you know? What I will say is that the soldering job they've done is absolutely fine. And it looks like even the solder they've used is actually okay. Like a strong leaded, you know? But I bet all of these connections will be all A-okay, to be honest. Just a little bit of fluxy is all. That's what a factory one looks like, and this is the one that they've replaced. HDMI port, again, definitely been replaced. I'm just checking around these areas because this is where the previous tech has obviously worked. So I'm just seeing more so if there's something like, you know, a bridge that might be causing this to short out. I mean, that HDMI port isn't necessarily straight. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you can see it's kind of pointing this way a bit, which if somebody is trying to force in the cable, I mean, it could have an effect long term with somebody taking, you know, putting the cable in and taking it out and it being at an incorrect angle with the plastic on the chassis. But, I mean, they look like they're all connected. I'll give them a quick nudge, but I don't think this is going to be our issue, causing the PS5 to not turn on. So clearly what this has had is a lot of work done to it, and then maybe it's developed that fault of the turning on, turning off at some point. Let me have a gander at this RAM then. Can you see? I think that's been replaced. Look. There's a bunch of flux here. I don't know which one's been replaced. Maybe a few of them actually. Look, you can just see the flux all around the RAM chips. These are RAM chips, by the way. Yeah, look, even here. How many of these have been changed? RAM can be a funny one because sometimes if you don't pair it up exactly, it won't work. So I'm just going to go ahead and check that they've managed to replace these sticks with the correct sticks of RAM, which I don't even know what is correct, but I'm going to take a guess here. So it's Hynix RAM, and it's 110A S2C. And this one, I mean, it is different, hey? So I think it's safe to say they've definitely tried to replace RAM. SK Hynix, it's just different, 251A. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume this one's factory because it doesn't look like it's got any flux around it, nor it looks like it's been moved at all. And the one next to it as well is 110A. And again, that's the same. It looks really, really clean. Same with this one. What about this one? This is one next to that. Is that being changed? 251A. Maybe it has then. Is that someone else? That doesn't look factory to me. That one looks factory. As does that. That one doesn't. That looks like shiny new leaded balls, you know? That one as well. 303A. Oh, it looks like they've got a bunch of different like Hynix RAM here? I don't know. That also looks like it's been changed as well. That's 303A as well. They're just mixed chips, aren't they? I've got a funny feeling I've done a video recently whereby these little numbers here, like where it says 303A, I'm sure have to match up, but I think there was like a different RAM. I think it was like Samsung RAM. That's factory, I think. Right, here's what I think. I think this had a bunch of work to it. It had a HDMI port swap and the USB port was swapped for whatever reason. Maybe they were caved in. It went back to the customer and it seemed to be working absolutely fine. Then they stumbled across maybe a RAM issue and it developed another fault just out of pure maybe bad luck. They ran UART on the console and it said that bay number 4, RAM stick number 4 was faulty. They replaced it with different RAM and then they were led down this rabbit hole of just changing a bunch of different RAM sticks. And I think where that's originated from is the fact that they've just mixed the Hynix RAM. I could be completely off and completely wrong, and people in the comments section now could be going, Joey, you absolute fool. As long as it's Hynix, it doesn't matter what type of RAM it is for the PS5 specifically. And I might, like I said, be leading myself down a massive rabbit hole. However, that's all I've got to go by. And that is the hole that I'm going to follow. The RAM that looks like it's OG on the board is 110A, and those are all the sticks that I'm going to try and find through a stack of donor boards that I have. Out of the tens of boards I have, the only one that I found with Hynix RAM, so this is the board that we were just looking at, so this is the one we're currently working on, and this is the donor board. Now this RAM says 101A, not 110A. However, notice on the donor board that I'm looking at right now, it says S2C 101A, and what I think is the original RAM on the board we're currently working on, this also has S2C, but it's just 110A. So I feel like that's more of a match than what the other person's put on here. I don't know if that is the case, but that's what I'm going to go with. Joey, what are you talking about? What does that mean? Unfortunately for me, I'm going to reball and replace 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of RAM because I think that's what they've changed. And I'm not going to take you through the whole process of that because we'll be here for days. Not days, but a long time. So I'll show you through the first one and then skim through the rest. Introduce voiceover Joey.
Thank you for the pass over live, Joey. We start off by removing all of the RAM possible from our donor board. I opted to remove all 8 here instead of just 6, just in case I needed those extra 2 for later purposes. Unfortunately, I can't verify that the RAM on this board does work, but it's a risk I have to take. Next, we take our chip holder and start cleaning our RAM. I start by adding a drop of flux to each RAM module, then using my soldering iron at 300 degrees Celsius along with some leaded solder, mixing with the unleaded already on the chip and then wicking it away. And here's all 8 of those RAM chips nice and clean. And now it's time to reball. I actually use a solder paste on the RAM chips. I put the stencil over the chip itself, spread the paste and blast it in 99% airflow and 350 degrees Celsius. And of course I had to do one of these again because it wouldn't be a Joey Does Tech video without a Joey Does mess up. The biggest bit of advice that helped me was to keep the airflow moving. That stopped the stencil from popping. Over to the actual board we're working on, I go to remove the 6 RAM sticks that I think need to be removed, then use my soldering iron to wick away the solder that remains on the pads, ensuring that we get that nice clean finish. Shout out to the previous person who done the soldering for these, it made my life a lot easier. Sometimes when you remove these RAM sticks, there are absolute monstrosities underneath, but that simply wasn't the case with this board, finishing this part up with a nice little clean. And now for the final part of the process, putting some flux over the pads on the board and using my hot air station to solder the RAM into place. Lastly, a quick clean and inspection to make sure that everything is a-okay underneath the RAM chips. And thank goodness everything looked alright to me. Back over to you, live Joey.
And there we have it. All of the RAM has been put back on. I've tried to clean up as best as I can. And from what we saw just then, the solder balls look nice and clean and tidy underneath the RAM chips. I just don't know. So I've only done 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if I'm going to change these 2 as well, but we're just going to stick it in, test it, and then come to the realization that I've done all that work for absolutely no reason, as it's still going to be a beep on and then just turn off. Let's find out. The time is now. If I'm being completely transparent and honest, the only thing that I'm looking for here is for this to do something different. That would be absolutely fantastic, because different is not the same. Joey 2025. Exactly the same or in no pain. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. exactly the same. Now I'm going to do UART again to see if it maybe points out a failure point in the RAM. Failing that, what I'm going to do is change those last 2 RAM chips. I think that's just to make sure that then all of the RAM is then unified, uniform. They're one, basically. If that doesn't work, Lord only knows. Okay, exactly the same error code. That's all I get. I've again just cleared the code, started from afresh, and I get the 0001, which is just general, what's going on? General power failure. I'll change that RAM off camera now and then just be back with you in 2 seconds. And that's all done. So just to confirm, I changed out these 2 as well. So all 8 bits of RAM have now been changed. I wonder if that is going to be the fix. They say second time's a charm, or is it third time? I think it's third time's a charm. Well, today we make history and we're going to rewrite the saying and say second time's a charm. Here we go. In a 3, 2, 1. It teased me. It definitely teased me there. I swear that was like a millisecond longer than what it should be. Than what it was. Okay, all right. Well, we're not reinventing no saying today. I think it is just hopefully still going to be third time's a charm, maybe. Back to the old drawing board. I think the most annoying part about this whole situation is that I've just cleared all of the codes and I've had a look again and it's still saying the exact same thing. So I've not made a single difference. So whatever I've done in the past couple of hours has been for zilch. At this point, I then decided to take the PS5 to a live stream for a little bit more troubleshooting. If anyone's able to help me in these scenarios, it's you guys. However, I was not expecting what I found out. Whilst I was on the stream, somebody from the community informed me that you can read even more into the PlayStation 5 codes to gain a better understanding of exactly what the problem is. I didn't know this sorcery existed, mate. Give me 2 seconds then. Let me shoot it over to you in Discord if you don't mind, Ben. It was at this moment that the same person in the community had informed me that this board that I was working on had the exact same error code as somebody else who worked on it previously. Also, let it be known that it is very possible that you could have 2 separate PS5s that do have the exact same error code, but I'm talking it is around about 100 different digits that all line up the same. So the chances that it is the same, from what I'm hearing from the person in the community, he's like 99% sure it's the same device, but there's obviously that 1% of uncertainty. And I will clarify and confirm that the previous tech who potentially had this has helped me so much in my repair journey. I've asked them a bunch of questions and they've always been so willing to help out. You said you know who had this console, as in this exact console. What? Did he do a repair for somebody? He bought it broken and tried to fix? Surely not, because I've bought it from that person on eBay and they've not said anything. I don't think you guys would know this person, so it's just someone that myself and Ben both know. If I sold you a console on eBay but my name was different and I recognize your name, I'm going to say, oh, hey mate, this person is somebody in the community. Why would they not have said, here's more information, or hey mate, how you doing? My issue is if you've told the person it's APU and they've not said that in the listing, it's a scam. And I will never expose this person, by the way. That's not what I'm about. 100% the USB port has been like scuffed, or it's had 2 pins that have crossed and that's caused the power to go through and bust up some stuff. Now, after investigating the board a little bit further with that string of code, we have found out that it was in fact the APU, which is the brains of the console. It's the CPU mixed with the GPU, is completely kaput. Or was it? Hang around after this little bit of spiel. And what I'm being told in this exact moment is that the person who had this, that I have spoken to on multiple occasions, knew that that was the case because this person in the community had told them that the APU is completely gone. And just to confirm, when the APU is broken, you cannot fix the device. So it's a write-off and it is purely for parts. And if you recall at the start of the video, nowhere in that description does it state that the APU or brains of the PS5 is actually the issue. So one of the main questions I have in my head now was, have I been lied to by that person? Which I really honestly, from talking to them as much as I have, I don't think that would be the case. Well, turns out later on in the stream, where the description says that they sent it to an electronics repairer, that is the person that we're talking about, that I have had multiple conversations with. They didn't buy it faulty, attempt to fix it, and then sold it on. They had taken it on as a repair from a customer, attempted to fix it, wasn't able to, passed it back to the customer, to which the customer has then listed it on eBay as faulty. Still, hasn't mentioned in the description that the APU is gone, otherwise I wouldn't have wasted my money. Hopefully, that all made sense. The person who then linked the code to it being an APU issue told me that there is maybe a slight chance that it could be the SSD controller. So that's exactly what I changed on the stream. I wasn't ready to give up just yet. Just to say as well, I have reached out to the previous technician that we believe might have had this console, just to confirm factually if they did
have it. By the time I'm editing this video, I have to put it up. I haven't had a response just yet, but I've not given them too much time in all fairness. So please keep an eye down below in the pinned comment to find out if it was that previous tech or not. I think it's pretty fair to say, however, that me not knowing about the APU being faulty with this PS5 is not the fault of the previous tech. It is the fault of the person that sold me the device if they were aware that the APU is faulty. But I also have no way of proving that. Did replacing the SSD controller fix the issue? Let's find out. No, it didn't.
So based on that information, yes, it really, really sucks. No, I don't necessarily believe or think I was scammed, but it was almost like a little bit of a close call. Let's head on over to Sally's spectacular spreadsheet to work this out. Funnily enough, what I'm going to do, because this only cost me £130 for the PS5 and I'll be able to use, for example, the power supply and the other chips on the board, I'm going to absorb the cost of this. I'm not going to sell it. So my estimated is going to be zero. What that then also unfortunately means is that my actual sell price is going to be zero. I am in fact then going to swallow £130 worth of loss. But again, the upside is that I'm gaining, parts and stuff, so it's not too bad. For £130, I don't have any updates yet for these items, so I can't update that. Means that our loss for today again is minus 130 on episode number 38. Hours worked. I have to say about 4 hours worth of work. Yeah, I'll go with 4 hours. That gives me minus £32.50 an hour, which isn't ideal. And the total scores on the doors now is £1,458.84 out of a target of £2,000. And lastly, a big sorry that I wasn't able to fix it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it and you got nothing else better to do, then feel free to join me over here for a video that the lovely YouTube recommends. Peace.